The CEO of Simplex is named Nimrod. Hey, what's up, everybody? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. This is part 7 of 7 for Israel's mystery gatekeepers to the new economic world order. There's a lot of information jam-packed in this video, but before I get into it, as of this recording, there's about 40 days left until Disclosure on the Coast prophecy unveiled. Here at the Watchman Conference in Orange County, California. This is my backyard. Plenty of authors, researchers, and speakers you've probably heard of. Derek Gilbert, Carl Teichert, L.A. Marzulli, Russ Dizdar, Paul McGuire, and others. We're going to be there. We're going to be discussing these issues, stuff that you will not hear in church. All you got to do is go to hearthewatchman.com and click on Purchase Tickets, which will take you to an Eventbrite page. And if you use the promo code GONZ20, that's GONZ20, you will get $20 off on the conference, and I think you're going to also get 20% off of the live stream, which you can also get in case you are not in California and you can't make it out here. You can definitely live stream the conference. 20% off if you use the promo code GONZ20. Looking forward to the presentation as well as the fellowship that we get to have at these types of events. And Patreon, thank you for the new patrons out there. Thank you for the long-standing patrons. Appreciate your ongoing support. And of course, other ways you can support the channel. You can pick up a t-shirt in the Teespring store. But I don't want to take too much time in the intro here other than one more thing before we get into this final section. There's a document by Deloitte. And if you guys don't know who Deloitte is, they are a multinational professional services network. And they're considered one of the big four in accounting organizations. And they have a document that they published titled Deloitte's 2019 Global Blockchain Survey. And in it, there's a whole section on Israel. And here's what it says. Quote, there is substantial blockchain activity within Israeli organizations focused largely on digital assets, in particular cryptocurrencies. Israel stands as a strong leader in entrepreneurial activity and R&D in areas such as cyber, cryptography, and intelligence, which in turn seems to create a natural affinity for blockchain. Towards that end, some see Israel as a hotbed of blockchain activity. Crypto activities might currently outnumber corporate blockchain efforts, but a shift may be looming. Israeli blockchain startups are pursuing projects in such other areas as DNA data storage, diamond registration, cybersecurity, and international shipping. And it's actually really interesting when you look at this figure 6 chart here, or graph. It shows countries showing differing attitudes about blockchain, and the countries that are cited: China, Singapore, United States, and Israel. And according to this chart, it seems like Israel is very low on the confidence scale when it comes to a lot of these issues. For example, blockchain technology will disrupt my industry. Israel says 15%, but China is saying 34%. And when you look at questions like blockchain as a top 5 strategic priority, China's 73%, the US 56%, and Israel only 40%. And then even still, according to this chart, those who already brought blockchain to production, the United States is leading the way with 29%, Israel with only 2%. And I want people to understand that with something like blockchain, it's not just one giant blockchain that controls all. I'm sure people are trying to build that, and there are projects like Golem trying to be the world supercomputer, Ethereum also using that header or title looking to be the world supercomputer. But in reality, every one of the projects out there has their own blockchain, which means they have their own set of computers that are maintaining the network. And in that regard, Bitcoin is the most decentralized or the most pure because it was the first one to do it, and it's open source. It's not a corporate blockchain. It is a completely free and open source system that allows, again, anyone to participate. So you have to keep in mind that there are different blockchains and they're all going to be competing. And of course, there are projects out there promising to create some sort of interoperability, which means, let's say you have some Ethereum and you want to change it into EOS. There are ways to do that. There's things called atomic swaps that they're working on. But really, in terms of the interoperability, projects like Chainlink are looking to create that cross-blockchain access or make the whole process easier, because right now it is not that easy to either swap or to change one type of cryptocurrency into another. And this will become even more difficult or even more controlled as the corporate blockchains start to get pumped out there. So again, this is chaotic. This is just the beginning of this type of technology being implemented into a lot of databases and computing systems and networks. It's going to revolutionize a lot of things, but it's also going to be used in a negative fashion to promote a even more locked down system. Because if certain corporations say, oh, we're using blockchain, and they use that term because it's a buzzword right now, people might think, oh, it's open and anyone can read it and that sort of thing, but that's not true. In terms of data collection and storage, the blockchain is great for corporations and private institutions and other such entities because they can keep organized a lot better all of the stuff that goes on and maintain their centralized, closed-off approach to data management and collecting your data and everything else. So just something to keep in mind, and hopefully something that will get you guys thinking that it's not just one giant blockchain that's going to rule all. And maybe that will be the case at a certain point, especially as it pertains to certain prophetic passages. But in terms of how things are now, that's where we're at. But in any case, let me get into this. There's plenty to get into in this video. The final section of Israel's mystery, gatekeepers of the new economic world order. And then afterwards, I'm also going to do a little blurb on the Sanhedrin because a lot of people have been asking me about it and bringing it up. And it's something that I've looked into, but I haven't really shared on the channel before. So I'll get into some of that at the very end after this section of the video. Enjoy. So the emergence of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has really created a hasty emotional movement of futurists, innovators, entrepreneurs, investors, and other powerful influencers to start building the infrastructure for this emerging economic system. There are total scams out there. Others are really ambitious to the tune of billions invested with not a single product to show for it, as of yet. But the movement is present and palpable. It's happening. The leading nation in this regard is Israel. In an article published in July of 2018 titled Israel Quickly Becoming the Leading Fintech Hub, it states, quote, from its origin as a 90s startup, $13 million capital sector, the Israeli financial industry has grown to include approximately 500 fintech startups, collectively raising an estimated total of $500 to $650 million to date. According to a report by Deloitte, Israel is quickly becoming a premier fintech hub in line with Silicon Valley, Singapore, and London. And later in the article, it states, among these are the Israeli Bitcoin Embassy, which promotes the use, development, and regulation of Bitcoin, Barclays community space Rise Tel Aviv, which recently partnered with the 5,000-member-strong FinTech Aviv community, The Floor, a vertical-focused fintech hub backed by Chinese investment firm the Pando Group aimed at connecting the Israeli fintech industry with Asian markets. Ding, ding, ding. We have China in connection with Israel, and Israel connecting with New York. See what's taking place here. And Beehive Tel Aviv, a fintech hub launched in 2017 to connect Israeli and Belgian fintechs. Interesting, the Beehive, the hive mind. Another platform is Deloitte's Innovation Tech Terminal, the ITT, which connects Israeli innovation with Deloitte's global clients. So here we go. Everything is connecting. The borderless stuff is happening. And as I mentioned, this is worldwide. So Israel is rising and is becoming one of the top of the fintech industry next to Silicon Valley, Singapore, and London, with one of their main focuses being Bitcoin's on-ramp and off-ramp. Now, keep in mind, they can't necessarily control Bitcoin. They can own a lot of Bitcoin. They can buy Bitcoin now, but they can't control the actual Bitcoin network. They can only create on top of it on-ramps and off-ramps. Okay, keep that in mind. I continue on here. In 2017, Mashable reported that Israel is looking to launch their own private cryptocurrency in a few years. Quote, the Bank of Israel is looking to issue a digital currency to create a faster payments system as well as reduce the country's reliance on cash, according to an anonymous source that spoke to Reuters. This national cryptocurrency would be very different from Bitcoin, however. Reuters' source claims it would be centralized, safe, and in accordance with Israel's money laundering rules. Bitcoin, in contrast, is decentralized and anonymous, end quote. So there you go. This is akin and in line with every other traditional system here. The Bank of Israel looking to issue their own digital currency, and it's going to be centralized, but it's going to comply with all of their rules. And so it's possible that everyone's going to use it anyway because, hey, it's signed off. But if you read the definition of fiat earlier, right? Government issued some sort of authority, a decreed system of money. That's the exact same thing that the Bank of Israel is trying to do. If it's centralized, safe, in accordance with their monetary laundering rules, it's basically in compliance with the Bank of Israel, which means that this is fiat by definition, right? It's not a cryptocurrency. They're just using that title to get people to use it. And here's the deal, guys. I know people say, hey, but cash is more anonymous than this stuff. Like you said, everything gets recorded. Yes, it's true when it comes to Bitcoin. When it comes to Litecoin, a lot of these major coins do have a public ledger that is recorded. However, there are projects out there like Monero, like Zcash to an extent, or others like Aeon, or now we have Grin, which was built on Mimblewimble, which mathematically proved a way in which cryptocurrency transactions can take place and keep the P2P side of it private and the amount private and all these things. There's all sorts of innovations happening to where cryptocurrencies will effectively work like cash, anonymous P2P exchange. So keep that in mind, okay? Bitcoin is not anonymous, although people have wanted to build anonymous layers on top of it, and there are ways to create anonymous layers on top of it. I think as we go into the labeling of addresses, there's going to be a layer of protection, and what I mean by that is something like unstoppable domains. If you guys don't know about it, it's built on the Zilliqa platform. So instead of .com, it's .zil. And basically with some of these domains, you can attach a Bitcoin address to it. Now, I actually don't know about the privacy situation with that, but in terms of where it's headed, instead of giving you my public address of like these strings of numbers and letters, I can just say, hey, go to FaceLikeTheSun.zil to, give me any Bitcoin. That's what's coming around the corner. Now, getting back to Israel, we've seen some hackers come out of Israel as well when it comes to the financial technology advancement. Quote, the perp 31-year-old Eliyahu Gigi from Tel Aviv reportedly stole Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dash from various foreigners, including Belgians, Dutch, and Germans, Israeli news reports. Gigi is facing charges of theft, fraud, aggravated counterfeiting, use of a forged document, perjury, money laundering, and income tax offenses. And there was more about him and his brother here in another article on Cointelegraph. Quote, one of the most prominent crypto cybercrimes in recent years took a dramatic turn on June 23rd when two Israeli brothers were arrested in connection with the 2016 Bitfinex hack and other crypto-related phishing attacks. Just shy of 120,000 Bitcoins were stolen in the attack back in 2016, an amount initially worth $72 million, although it's much more now, which just as a show of reference, it was $72 million worth in 2016. Today in 2019, it's worth almost 1.4 billion. Okay. So people that have invested in Bitcoin have already gotten rich. One of the most headline grabbing aspects of the arrest was the announcement that Eli Gigi, I guess Eli is the same as Eliyahu, the elder of the two brothers, had received specialist training from an elite technological unit of the Israeli Defense Forces. Oh, there you go. Ding, ding, ding. We have individuals who were trained and operated in the IDF out there hacking people for their crypto. I mean, this guy's probably rogue, but you never know. You never know if he was, part of the plan to create chaos. Very possible to push an atmosphere where the governments still control everything. Their own cryptocurrency. Don't use Bitcoin. Use our own bank-issued cryptocurrency, which is the same thing as fiat. So the article goes on and actually denies any special ability associated with the IDF training. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think it does suggest that they are trying to create a situation where they can provide the groundwork for implementing state-controlled legislation. But again, it's not so black and white when it comes to the reality of cryptocurrencies. It's creating a mixture of events depending on context, location, and how long they've been occupying incorruption in traditional financial systems. Yahoo reported, quote, months after Palestine's current government was sworn in, the prime minister has revealed plans to develop a cryptocurrency meant to reduce dependence on Israel. According to Anadolu Agency, the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh stated that the digital currency will assist the territory to overcome the challenges currently being experienced as a result of the over-reliance on the Israeli shekel. In a loosely translated statement, Shetaya said that this was part of the Palestinian National Authority's e-government plans. So, again, not so clear in black and white. Now, this use of government currency is to get away from the Israeli issued currency. So, again, look, this is chaotic, folks. They're really creating chaos out of this. So we can see that the economic leverage that can be practiced with the advent of cryptocurrencies is quite substantial. Again, we didn't really have this ability for governments to try to go away from the controllers or controlling nations and create their own independent thing. Now, again, you can argue that, within that country, that technology can be used for spying and all this kind of stuff. Yes, again, it's all double-edged. Everything is double-edged. You can use it for positive, you can use it for negative. And in reality, folks, it's been like that since the fall. The knowledge of good and evil meant that we can act in good or evil with anything around us. So we got to keep that in mind here. In the case of Palestine, or at least the Palestinian prime minister and their national authority plans with e-government, they're trying to get to a place of freedom and sovereignty from the economic influence of Israel. And just so you guys know about this, and I'm sure some of you guys who are familiar with the markets and follow money and stuff like that, you guys know that countries like China, like Russia, they've been doing the same thing to the US dollar. They've been buying up gold, they've been probably buying up Bitcoin too, and they've been basically taking stake in other assets and trying to dump the US dollar because it's really losing its ground as the world reserve currency. And just to give you my honest opinion here, Trump came out a few weeks ago and talked about cryptocurrency and how it's bad. That tells me he's probably getting cryptocurrency. And I say that because the pattern of a lot of these elite guys like Jamie Dimon, who a year ago was like, anyone who's buying or trading Bitcoin is fired. And a year later, he came out with his own cryptocurrency and said he was, buying Bitcoin. So these guys lie about this all the time. And the fact that Trump said bad things about it, that tells me he's buying some. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Again, the ledger is public. You can go in there and start looking around, see if you can tie certain individuals to certain transactions, although that's hard to do, and there are already government agencies trying to do that. And of course, the big thing has been Facebook Libra. The last month or two, people have been freaking out about it, all kinds of stuff. Even the US government bringing in people to try to figure out what's going on with all this stuff. It was all just a crock of nonsense. None of them knew what was going on. Nobody was talking. It was just a waste of time. But in reality, what Facebook is trying to do with their Merkle tree data structure and their whole system there, they're trying to create a system that has behavioral controlled economics tied into all of the rest with the data that they have from Facebook. So no surprises there, but hey, guess who shows up in some of these early developments of the Libra token, according to Forbes.com. Quote, the first wallet to support the test version of Libra is Zengo, a mobile app available on iTunes and has support for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Built by Israeli-based KZen Networks and backed by $4 million in venture capital from investors, including Forbes Blockchain 50 member Samsung, the wallet will let users experience what it feels like to send and receive Libra when it launches in 3 weeks. It should be the first ever consumer-grade Libra wallet available to all, says Zengo CEO Oriel Ohayon. So Forbes has their Blockchain 50 and Samsung is one of its members, and they're the ones pumping money into this Israeli-based project that will be the first to carry Libra token as one of their things to trade off stuff. And again, the technology, it doesn't even matter if it works or not. The fact that this is being reported suggests that there's an agenda behind it. Now, Israel becoming a leader in financial technology means that they'll also be the hub for criminal activity. As we just saw with the hacker brothers arrested earlier, he's not alone. Quote, German and Austrian police have carried out one of the largest operations to date against alleged online financial scammers. German public television reported earlier this month a joint German-Austrian team has in recent months carried out 35 raids in 5 countries and investigated 10 suspects in connection with 5 allegedly fraudulent online trading websites, the report said. The 5 online trading sites being investigated by German and Austrian police are Option 888, Trade Invest 90, X Markets, Zoom Trader, and Tradovest, according to a July 3rd report. Most of these sites are or were associated with Tradeologic, an Israeli-funded and run Bulgaria-based online trading platform. In a related arrest, Israeli Gal Barak was apprehended in Bulgaria in February at the behest of Austrian prosecutors. At the time, Austrian prosecutors announced that they had raided the offices of 6 other Tradeologic websites. They include XTrader FX, Option Stars Global, Golden Markets, Safe Markets, and CryptoPoint. The report described the alleged fraudsters as employing methods identical to those of Israel's binary options industry, which was banned by the DECEIT in October 2017, but which continues to operate from Israel and other countries under the guise of Forex, crypto, or derivatives trading websites. Now, of course, criminals come from every corner of the earth, from every nation, but just like any disruptive technology, like guns, for example, those who have access and ability to distribute and externalize that tech has first mover advantage. And in this case, Israel seems to be ahead of the game because their criminals are out there doing this. And they're taking advantage of not having legislation. They're taking advantage of these systems. And of course, certain people have to go down for it. But this goes to show how much of the other things that are out there are also scams. How many other trading platforms and things of that nature are scams. And again, this is separate from the cryptocurrencies themselves, like Bitcoin. It doesn't mean Bitcoin is corrupt. It means the people, the services that are built on top of it, like exchanges, those are often very much corrupt and are using the same type of derivative market trading and manipulating the markets that existed before. And obviously, people that have a lot of Bitcoin can manipulate the market. There are no laws or rules against the cryptocurrency market because it's just this open thing. It's 24/7. It's not like the stock exchange where it stops every day. This is worldwide and it is 24/7. It doesn't end. And we got to keep in mind here, Bitcoin's been around for 10 years as of this recording, over 10 years now. And Israel's been part of this change for the entire decade, really, very quietly. In 2015, this Israeli 21C article lists 4 Israelis who found themselves as part of the top 100 leaders in emerging financial technology. And in 2008, during the economic crash, Israel was taking over the cybersecurity world. If you take a look at this Computer Weekly article, and in the article it states, Israel's economy continues to grow strongly and increasingly demand from the international market for its technological expertise plays a big part in this. In 2005, almost half of the total industrial exports were technology-based. Today, Israel's entrepreneurs lead the way in many fields of software application and homeland security. So why so many information security companies founded and developed in Israel? Quote, that is like me asking you why there are so many umbrella manufacturers in the UK, says Israel Levi, president and chief executive of Control Guard. Quote, we need security here like you need umbrellas in the UK. And this is where it gets geopolitical, folks. Nur Zamir, vice president of marketing for information security from Yogi, agrees that Israel's wealth of knowledge about information security is in line with its strong army and military might. Nick Outeridge is the director of business development for IT security company PureSight and is the Israeli company's only British member on staff. He said, quote, Israel needs superior security having survived the Holocaust. It sharpens minds. What they have suffered has given them the edge. That's an interesting comparison there. And the tentacles go far, folks. They go very, very far. According to this section called Foreign Investment, Bill Gates explains why Microsoft has established an office in Ra'anana. Quote, for Microsoft, having a research and development center in Israel has been a great experience. The quality of the people here is fantastic. So Microsoft has a location in Israel. With reasons such as motivated staff and an innovative atmosphere backed by government-funded research and development programs, Cisco, Motorola, and eBay have also invested in Israeli technology. And it goes on and on. So let me get back to the document I started with here. September of 2019, this is going to become official here. the fintech partnership with the Bank of Israel in New York. Again, let me read this for you one more time. Governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, and Israel's 3 financial regulators, supervisor of banks at the Bank of Israel, head of Abur, head of Capital Markets Insurance and Savings Authority, Moshe Baraket, and chairwoman of Israel's Security Authority, Anat Guetta, today announced an agreement between New York State Department of Financial Services and Israel's regulators to encourage and enable cross-border innovation in financial services technology, or fintech. The purposes of the agreement is to encourage fintech innovation in New York and Israel by providing support to fintech companies and to enable information sharing regarding this fast-developing domain. So if we read between the lines with some of this stuff, this feels more like an infiltration of a foreign financial system into the so-called financial capital of the world, New York, although they've been going at it for a while now. And again, this concerns the on-ramps and off-ramps to changing the fiat into digital currencies like Bitcoin. And for right now, there are certain places you can buy Bitcoin. You can go to Coinbase. You can go to CoinMama, which is a broker in Israel. Okay, all the on-ramps are basically controlled by companies that come out of Israel. And it's already happening. If you use an application of any kind, or at least most of them, I haven't really found one that doesn't use this system to purchase or change your fiat money into Bitcoin. Now, again, there's a couple different ways to do this. There are OTC ways, which is over the counter, which basically you get connected with someone that has Bitcoin and you meet them face to face and you give them cash and they give you the private keys to that Bitcoin wallet that contains that amount. Or they can send to your wallet the amount of Bitcoin that you paid for, and you can do this in person. But the other way, the more regulated way to do this, because everyone has credit and they have debt, basically they have digital cash in their bank accounts, the way in which you change that into Bitcoin is much more controlled. And the company called Simplex is one of those off-ramp, on-ramp places where pretty much it's integrated into all kinds of systems. So if you want to buy a certain amount of Bitcoin or certain cryptocurrencies, Simplex has been integrated into most of the systems that are out there in America right now anyway, and around the world. Again, I haven't found an application or platform that really doesn't use this when it comes to turning cash, turning dollars into Bitcoin. And again, this is not to say anything negative about the people that work at Simplex or the company or anything like that. I'm just looking at this from a 1,000-foot view of how things are going and commenting and reflecting my personal opinions on the issue. And if you go to the Simplex website here, you have this logo design, which is interesting. It's a 7-pointed star. Now, the 7-pointed star has many different meanings in different cultures, but according to the Kabbalistic tradition, it represents the sphere of Venus and the power of love. And you can find all kinds of more esoteric descriptions and uses of the 7-pointed star on the internet. But I do think it's interesting here, and it talks about who they are. They're a fintech company that provides worldwide fraud-free payment processing with a proven track record in high fraud markets. Simplex technology enables merchants, marketplace, and crypto platforms to process online payments with complete fraud protection and chargeback coverage. So they're trying to be this official gateway with protections to transfer money into cryptocurrencies and other assets. Places that use this: Binance, one of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges out there; Bitmart, KuCoin, Zoppo, CoinFlip, Cross Exchange, BTCC, ChainJelly, Mycelium, Cointelegraph, Paybis. I think there's others too that aren't listed here, but you wouldn't necessarily know that they're from Israel if you just look at the website itself. But if you go to a page like this is finder.startupnationcentral.org. There's an outline here of Simplex when they got started, and it clearly states that they're doing work from the nation state of Israel. And they already have a branch in Lithuania. This was back in 2017. And really, there hasn't been a whole lot of news from them other than this thing that they're really, integrating into all sorts of businesses and platforms that are trying to help people change their fiat, especially credit or debit, into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. There are certain things, folks, that I find out about, and I just think, man, no way that that's real. And then I find out it's real. And look, it may be just an unfortunate coincidence, although I don't necessarily believe in coincidences per se, okay? But the CEO of Simplex is named Nimrod Lehavi. He looks like a nice guy. He looks like someone just trying to do good stuff. And look, I get it, not saying he's the Antichrist. I'm not saying he's evil, but man, just why? Why does his name have to be Nimrod? You know what I mean? It's just a spiritual thing, in my opinion. But there you have it. Israel is really at the forefront of this changing financial technology landscape. And they've already been building well before anybody really knew about cryptocurrencies or cared about them. They've been building this infrastructure slowly. They're going to be one of the leaders. And I think that fits certain eschatological passages alluding to mystery Babylon and fornicating with the kings of the earth. And I really do think that it's possible. I'm not saying it is, but definitely possible that this New York and Israel relationship to share information and data between the two to innovate and create the fintech infrastructure, I really do think that has something to do with the fornication of Mystery Babylon with the kings of the earth, like the beast. And we know that the beast takes advantage of Mystery Babylon. And certainly, if, some people believe the United States is that first beast, that's definitely possible. I don't necessarily think it's one country, but even if you don't, you can tell that these types of connections that are taking place, the developments that are happening economically, are leading to that end. And I think the conclusion I want to land on here is that we really do have a role to play in this. We have an opportunity to make sure that the gospel is spread in this time. And as much as possible within these types of communication and information transfer highways. We're basically building a new information highway, Web 3.0, right? And we really got to make sure that the word of God, the gospel, is in there. And through that, we can probably help a lot of people around the world at the same time. We can act on the Great Commission in a much more tangible way, in a way that we didn't have access to before. A lot of times we may have needed government regulations to agree with certain things that we wanted to do to help people in another country. Those sorts of barriers are slowly going away. And of course, it's not gone. The technology is there for us to do certain things, but those regulations are still there. The battle is still being fought, and it's only going to get worse. And the volatility is only going to get worse. And I think that this is all prophetic in nature and not suggesting we know a certain day or time, his return. The only person that knows is the Father in heaven. And really, he's the one that's going to dictate all of this. But I do think we have a responsibility to play here. And part of my doing in that and making these videos is to inform you that there is a lot more prophetic undertones to all the stuff going on, especially in the changes of financial technology. And it really does level the playing field between technology, the world of economics, the world of politics and geopolitics, and ultimately even the religious part of it. I think is going to be a major factor in how certain systems develop and continue to build and eventually produce a man of sin that will have some kind of resurrection, perhaps, or some kind of thing that he returns from a mortal head wound. And again, there could be some more allegorical applications to that passage even now, even in terms of eschatological context, not just an individual. But in any case, after that, there will be a false prophet, a second beast that will point to this first beast and have everybody worship this first beast and have everybody take the mark in order to buy or sell within this particular economic infrastructure that will be created. And we're leading in that direction very quickly. So hope you guys get something out of this. I know it's a little bit longer, but think of this as kind of a Bible study / commentary on world events. And just being watchful, and really the warning for those people that are going to continue to build this: don't take the mark. Simple as that. Don't worship the beast. Don't take the mark in your right hand or in your forehead. So there you have it, Israel's mystery. The gatekeepers to the new economic world order, or at least one of them, controlling the on-ramps and off-ramps of these projects that are supposed to be revolutionary with blockchain technology. It will be interesting to see, again, how this all plays out. I mentioned in the earlier video that Israel is planning to issue their own cryptocurrency, which means it's going to be a centralized thing. It's not going to be like Bitcoin where it's open and free. It's going to be highly tracked by the governments and their banks. So it's a war, it's a battle. It's going to continue to wage on here as the traditional markets continue to show instability. But I wanted to bring up this Sanhedrin issue because a lot of people have told me, like, hey, you got to check out the Sanhedrin and the Noahide laws, and they're really trying to get that system in place. And I do think there's something there. Now, I did a little bit of research. I haven't done the deep digging that some people are looking for, but I will say I did find some articles that are probably the main sourced articles for a lot of these topics. And the first one I want to look at here was published on January 20th of 2005 on IsraelNationalNews.com, the Arutz Shiva. And in this article, it states Sanhedrin launched in Tiberias, a unique ceremony, probably only the second of its kind in the past 1600 years, is taking place in Tiberias today, or back in 2005. The launching of a Sanhedrin, the highest Jewish legal tribunal in the land of Israel, a religious assembly that convened in one of the Holy Temple chambers in Jerusalem, comprised 71 sages and existed during the Tanaic period from several decades before the Common Era until roughly 425 CE. And then, again, after 425 CE, it was broken up. It wasn't official anymore, although there were pockets of people trying to reestablish it. But in 2005, they got 71 rabbis to receive a special rabbinic ordination as specified by Maimonides, and they were basically summoned into this modern-day Sanhedrin. So clearly, according to this article anyway, this group exists or did reconvene and recreate this ancient council back in 2005. And by the time November rolled around, this published on November 7th of 2005, Sanhedrin Project unveiled with humility. A conference this week unveiled the Sanhedrin Project to the public, shifting away from euphoric satisfaction with the launch of the court 1 year ago and moving towards broadening participation. And it goes through all the people that have accepted positions. But here's what I found interesting, some quotes to lift from this article from 2005. Quote, while it would be easy to write off secular Jewry as not interested in the preservation of Jewish tradition and therefore not meriting consideration of the Sanhedrin, said Rabbi Re'im HaKohen in his opening address, quote, the authority and divine inspiration of the ultimate Sanhedrin comes from the divine presence, which our rabbis tell us rested upon the Jewish people at Sinai because not one single Jew was left out or excluded. The Sanhedrin Project is a vehicle toward unity, and unity is what will be the vehicle that will restore the divine glory to the Sanhedrin. Interesting. And I continue on in the article, quote, the prevailing opinion of most of the senior members of the Sanhedrin is that the Sanhedrin has not yet achieved full halakhic Jewish legal status, on par with its status before it was disbanded 1600 years ago, but that its restoration is truly underway. And again, this is 2005. This is almost 15 years ago. And then I continue on, quote, members of the court delivered reports outlining how the nascent Sanhedrin is already working towards fulfilling some of the primary functions that the ultimate Sanhedrin must fulfill, the role of societal leadership. Societal leadership. And down here it lists the items that each rabbi talked about. The one that stuck out at me here, quote, Rabbi Michael Shlomo Bar Ron spoke about the Sanhedrin's mission to the Bnei Noach, who are considered the sons of Noah, non-Jews who observe the 7 laws of Noah. He emphasized the high caliber and self-sacrifice of the Noahides he met on behalf of the Sanhedrin, who are coming to Israel in Tevet in January to be ordained as a high council for the Bnei Noach. And then the article concludes here, one of those who took the day off from work to attend the conference was Efrat resident Jeremy Gimple. Quote, I had read everything written about the renewed Sanhedrin with such excitement I had to see it for myself, Gimple said. What struck me is that ever since Mount Sinai, there were always 70 elders leading the Jewish people, and I believe that God, in his infinite wisdom, knew that Jews would be dispersed among the 70 nations. To see all these rabbis and leaders gathered back in the land of Israel, bringing with them different traditions, cultures, and approaches to Torah is a humbling experience and an answer to our daily prayer of Hashiva Shoftenu Kavari Shona, return our judges as of old. And the third article here that was published on Israel National News, again, this one back in 2005, titled Sanhedrin Moves to Establish Council for Noahide, it states in the article, quote, the purpose of the council, which was the brainchild of Rabbi Avraham Toledano, is to assist the Bnei Noach in their struggles to observe the word of God. Quote, the goal is to unify, serve, and organize all kosher Bnei Noach communities of the world under a single body that can operate under the direct authority and supervision of the Sanhedrin. End quote. The decision to establish the body reads, it continues, quote, to form a vessel through which the Torah from Zion via the Sanhedrin can effectively serve non-Jewish communities around the world. And then a third goal of the creation of the High Council and the Sanhedrin's efforts in regards to the Noahide community is to transform the Noahide movement from a religious phenomenon, a curiosity many have not heard of, into a powerful international movement that can successfully compete with, and with God's help, bring about the fall of any religious movement, that the pure, authentic faith that was given to humanity through Noach, the father of all of us, said emissary Bar Ron. And what are those 7 laws? They are: do not murder, do not steal or kidnap, do not worship false gods or idols. And in that regard, is Jesus considered a false god or idol? Interesting. Do not be sexually immoral. That includes incest, sodomy, bestiality, castration, and adultery. Do not utter God's name in vain. Curse God or pursue the occult. Ironic. Set up righteous and honest courts and apply fair justice in judging offenders and uphold the principles of the last 5. Okay. And then do not eat a part of a live animal. So there you have it. Those are the 7 Noahide laws, and there's a lot of history behind this, and not just biblical history. There's post-New Testament era history, again, leading up to the year 425, and a lot of drama surrounding this. So I'm not going to get into all of it here, but I did find an interesting connection here with the potential of a Sanhedrin or groups like it and Jerusalem or Israel and cryptocurrencies all kind of coming together here. This is an article written on the tabletmag.com a couple years ago titled Meet Bitcoin, the new Jewish cryptocurrency. With 10% of its earnings going to Tzedakah, the new Russian startup advertises itself as the first kosher currency of the digital age. So interesting. This was made by Russians, of all people. And listen to this. Move over, Bitcoin. There's a new digital currency in town, and it's taking its cues from the priests who once served in the ancient temple of Jerusalem. Bitcoin, a new online currency startup, was created by Russian entrepreneur Vyacheslav Semenchuk. Advertised as the first kosher cryptocurrency, Bitcoin boasts all the advantages of the digital world, combined with the values and customs of the ancient foundations in the framework of Jewish law. Sound familiar? The Jewish law they're referencing is the practice of giving 10% of your income to tzedakah. To this effect, Bitcoin will give the Jewish community a tenth of its earnings in the form of the coins, according to the Russian publication CNews. The company will also give tzedakah by giving members of the system interest-free loans. True to its Jewish roots, the company will be seen by a Sanhedrin of sorts, who Semenchuk calls the Council of Six. And while he's not revealing who those mysterious people are, the company has shared that they'll each represent a different economic area: business, politics, finance, technology, public work, and culture. Bitcoin advertises this on their website with a circle of icons for each sector connected by, what else? A Jewish star. Judging by the local Jewish community's response, Bitcoin has a bright future. Quote, we expect that the cryptocurrency will cover all Jewish communities around the world. Mikhail Lidogastor, press secretary of the chief rabbi of Russia, told Russian publication Inc., quote, the main guarantor of stability here is the fact that the keys to managing the cryptocurrency will be in the hands of the most respected members of the community and not in the hands of some programmers. Interesting. And it goes on and on here. Now, I'm sure there's more to this. There's always more information out there. The only other things that I can find concerning the modern Sanhedrin are things written by Christians and other believers who are calling it out, and I don't see actual source documents by them, although there were some lectures given by Rabbi Professor Hillel Weiss talking about the Sanhedrin and talking about what they're planning to do. So clearly it's part of their agenda. Clearly they have some plans to go into the UN some point this year or maybe later and try to take over. We'll see how it goes, because there's a lot of turmoil and tension when it comes to the legacy world systems like the UN and groups like the Sanhedrin, or at least Zionists that are out there. This according to the MEPC, which is the Middle East Policy Council. Take it for what it's worth. I'm not saying that this is absolutely true, but some of the documented information here seems to make sense to me anyway. This long article here written by Dr. Techner, who has a PhD in anthropology from the University of New York and a whole bunch of other places. She states here the UN General Assembly resolution that declares Zionism is a form of racism and racial discrimination has been a controversial issue since its adoption in 1975. And this little article goes in to try to clarify why this is so, why the United Nations basically considered Zionists or the Zionist movement as a racist movement, and tries to define racism not in the cultural context, but in the ideological sense, which is really more closely tied to what I would say is the main issue here when it comes to that topic, racism. It's not necessarily an epidermal discussion as much as it is a somewhat geographical, but more so ideological. It says here under strategies of concealment, quote, the racism that the UN resolution refers to is discrimination against non-Jewish citizens that is perpetuated in the fundamental laws of the state. And in a section titled Who is a Jew in Israel, it says here, some advocate that Jewish identification should be a matter of individual decision. If a person believes himself or herself to be a Jew and is willing to accept the responsibilities and obligations that being a Jew in Israel entails, that person should have the right of Jewish nationality. This position is taken by secularists who object to the religious criterion for nationality. At the other extreme, the Orthodox rabbinate insists that Jewish nationality and Jewish religion are inseparable, and that the halakhic definition of Jew, one born to a Jewish mother or converted to Judaism, must determine Jewish nationality. And then under the conclusion section, it states, if anti-Semitic practices are racist, despite the absence of race differences between Jews and their persecutors, it follows that anti-Arab practices by Jews are also racist. A government need not emulate the Third Reich openly, proclaiming racial superiority to be judged a racist state. The one essential ingredient of racism is systematic discrimination by one population against another, whether on biological or cultural grounds. And again, this is appealing to the Middle East Policy Council, so obviously it's going to have this anti-Israel sentiment. And yeah, I'll leave you with this. This is always the case here. People getting caught up in name calling and labeling people. And I understand the Synagogue of Satan passages in the Bible. I understand that. But listen, this is not about the epidermal shade or, even the bloodline biologically. Unless the people that are within those groups or organizations use that to proclaim some kind of superiority. Your regular Jewish folk, they're not sitting there proclaiming racial superiority. I mean, I can't read people's minds, and maybe some people are, but the Jewish people that I've known, they're not sitting there proclaiming to be rulers of the world. But certain people in certain ranks do think that, and it's not exclusive to Zionists. It's definitely a problem that has been part of human nature since the fall, especially with a very strong influence from the adversary himself. So this is ultimately always going to be a spiritual issue, as I have stated, and the more we understand this, the more we can clearly look at organizations, institutions, and maybe some of their actors within those apparatuses, and, criticize or at least warn about what might be coming. So that's about all I have for you in this video and in this series, Israel's Mystery Gatekeepers of the New Economic World Order. But I want to leave you with a scripture. Matthew 21, verses 12 through 13, paralleled in Mark 11, 15 through 18, and also Luke 19, verses 45 to 46, and John 2, verses 13 through 7. These are the passages that talk about Jesus driving the money changers from the temple. And of course, there are many different studies on this particular event. The only time Jesus got angry, the people talk about that. And the reason was because a couple reasons. One, it was in the temple. And of course, the fact that they were monetizing the temple in this manner was not acceptable to Jesus, but also the fact that these merchants were completely ripping off the people coming in from long distances to be a part of the temple service. And, that's very similar to what happens now. If you go to a theme park, if you go to a sporting event, if you go to any kind of event where you walk into an enclosed location and you want to buy food or you want to buy certain things that are part of that event, usually the items are way overpriced. But in this instance, they were doing, I think I read somewhere something to the effect of like 30 times more than what things would normally cost. And the other part of it that's really interesting is that the money changers, specifically throughout history, are those who actually exchange the coins or currency from one type, from one region or one country to another. They were there basically as the predecessors of modern banking. They were controlling the monetary inflow and outflow, and they were issuing their own currency here, which I find fascinating if you think about the modern application. For example, as I mentioned earlier in the series, Israel looking to issue their own cryptocurrency in this modern era, and in opposition, a sort of currency like Bitcoin, which is supposed to be open and free for anyone to use, not restricted, instigated, and controlled by any group or nation or institution. And the last thing I'll say about this, which is very, again, interesting, is that these merchants were giving a percentage of their gains to the high priest. And the high priests were making money. And of course, because of that, the high priests had a lot of control over this market. Any merchant that didn't comply to the high priest's parameters were kicked out. And of course, if you're kicked out of a marketplace like that, you can have severe economic consequences. So very fascinating that, this event took place and is recorded in Scripture. And I think it's the cherry on top of this subject matter. And it's really applicable to today in a very, very tangible way. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for your support. Please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, patrons, for your support. Pick up a t-shirt. Hear the Watchmen Conference coming up in October. Live stream is available for that. Again, GONS20 for discounts. And I think that's it. Have an awesome day. God bless.